All right, thanks, Al. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Al. What do you want us to know?
All right. Uh, well, thank you everybody showing up on a Tuesday evening. So, Al Fulton Neri, I'm out of Denver. I am an agent. I started as an investor, and then started investing in Denver, and then went to Detroit, and then built my way up to the different markets. But I became an agent a couple years after I became an investor, and I tell everybody off the get go because everybody thinks like, oh, you went and got a real estate license, so you had access to the MLS and you could list your own flips and things of that nature. Actually, wasn't true. The investing gurus that I learned from were very like realtor agnostic. Like we hate agents, they suck, but they serve a purpose. They give us access to, to open doors and stuff like that. So they were like, I don't know why anybody want to be an agent. So that was kind of the methodology I learned under. But I had a good friend who was an agent, and there was an opportunity for us to make some money together, but I needed a real estate license. It's the only reason I got licensed. And then I had to learn how to balance being an agent and an investor. But really, the way I got the bulk of my experience was I ended up getting recruited to speak for all the big boy TV shows, all the ones on HGTV, A&E, Discovery. And what that allowed me to do was I traveled internationally. And when I mean international, I mean the United States and Canada. And I just saw so many different markets. And whether I was investing in them or not investing in them, I just saw so many different markets. And so then what I really ended up realizing was that at the end of the day, if I had a skill set, it didn't really matter where I was at. I could figure out how to be successful in real estate in some capacity. I am a proponent of agents investing. Um, if an investor says, "Should I become an agent?" I don't know, maybe. It depends what your overall arching picture is, but it wouldn't be an immediate yes. But if you are an agent, should you invest? Absolutely, if it means something to you. So, I have a very AKA structured curriculum, but today's webinar was going to be the whole purpose of it was to be a little bit more interactive, and the focal point was going to be running numbers and how I run numbers and how I evaluate a deal and things of that nature. So I do want to address a couple things right off the bat that were said in the introductions, and then I'll let that take us down the lane of where we're going tonight. And what you'll see is how I think real time, because I wasn't prepped for any of this, right? I wasn't prepped for any of this. So the first question I'll answer was the buying tax deeds. Obviously, then you're going to foreclose, you're going to own the asset, right? And do we leverage cash or do we do a DSCR? So I don't. The worst part about being a host is you don't really see. Okay, Owen. Owen was the one that asked that question. Okay, so Owen, I need some numbers. So what are you acquiring those for?
Okay, so I understand how the rent works. Basically, it's roughly 1% determining whether or not I would invest in a property. But is it better to pay
Not necessarily.
$70,000?
Not necessarily. That was an old school rule. So the 1% rule was a little bit of an old school rule. But backtrack. I didn't mean to cut you off. But specifically, what are you buying the deeds for? What's it costing you to foreclose? What's the acquisition cost?
Okay, so it cost me about anywhere from 5 to 10,000 attorney's fees here in Florida for a tax deed. So we're not buying the certificates; we're just buying the tax deeds or the foreclosures. But what I'm looking at is it better to go and get something that's 200,000 and put 50,000 of my own money in it, or to go and get something and have the flexibility and just finish that one deal if I pay 70,000 cash for it, where it'd be a smaller deal, but it wouldn't be financed.
Got it. Okay. So let me do a few. Do you have a legitimate address?
I do not in front of me right now.
Okay. What city?
So let's just do one here in Destin, Florida. So there's one coming up to auction on Airport Road in Destin, Florida.
Okay, I'm trying to think of how I want to do it. And you don't have an address on that?
Let me see if I can look it up for you.
Okay.
If you want, let me get some information and
I'll come back to you.
come back.
I'll come back to you. So, okay. So, and I'm not trying to be like, right, but it's one of the rules of thumb, and here's the first rule of thumb is if you're going to go present your deal, and everybody I think learns this kind of the hard way, and you're going to go present it to a financer, whether it's a hard money lender, asset-based lender, private money lender, your uncle, I don't really care who it is. You always want to make sure that you've got a complete package, right? And it doesn't mean you what if to death, but you always want to make sure you know the address, you've got pics, you've got if they're crime, you got numbers, you got everything. Like just rule of thumb, number one is make sure you got the information. And then because then what it allows you to do is kind of say, okay, hey, here's a deal. I'd like you to lend me money on it. And I know that wasn't where Owen was coming from, but it was just a good moment, like, back in my days, my early days of leveraging capital and things of that nature. And people would ask a million questions and you were kind of caught off guard sometimes. So, okay, so let's go to who was driving to a duplex. Where are you? Where are you? You're the
That
X-ray
was
tech.
Spencer.
Spencer, where is Spencer? Spencer's disappeared on me. Okay. So
I'm right here. Yeah.
okay. Okay. And I got that address, but okay, Spencer, do you have an address you're driving to?
I absolutely do. So it is going to be 260 South Santa Ana Avenue.
Hold
Or
on a second. So like 260, like that?
yeah, 260 S for
Wait,
South.
as in like 260, like that?
Yeah,
Oh, you're driving.
260. Yeah, South Santa Ana Avenue in Modesto.
What's it for? Like $9 million?
No, it's a duplex for I think 300 some odd or some stuff.
Okay. So let's look at this real quick here. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's listed. So as I'm going through this real quick, from the first picture, right? Let's just start getting rehab numbers in our head a little bit, okay?
Okay.
So from the first picture, what are some things? Now remember, this is going to be a rental, right? But what are a few things that you may have to do right off the bat as a rental?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is if the sink is working, electrical, all that stuff. I mean, that's the big things that come to my mind.
Okay, so you're driving, so this is going to be a little tough for you,
Yeah.
because I'm on the first picture. So
Yeah.
okay, so you let me know when you get to a place where you can pull over, because if not, we're going to evaluate a deal that you can't even pay attention to. So
Okay. I'll be there in 5 minutes, and I'll
cool.
let you guys know when I'm there.
Perfect. All right, so let's go back to. Do you have more info, Austin? Or is there anybody else while I'm letting these guys gather info? No? Okay. Let's just do this then. Let's do something generic. And while these guys are getting a chance to get info. All right. So let me go to a whiteboard. Okay. So we're going to do a rental formula real quick. Okay. And I've got something we can, Debbie probably has your emails. What we'll do is we can email you a little handout if you want it. So this is our rental, right? So the first thing on a rental property is obviously what? Rents. Now, if you have no idea what market rents are, where do you guys go? Anybody speak up? Where do you?
Rental meter or whatever that website is?
Yep, Rent-A-Meter is one. What's another one?
Zillow.
Zillow is another one. Any others?
Local agent.
Local agent, yep, is another.
Yeah,
right?
MLS.
What was that?
The MLS. Yeah.
MLS. If your MLS shows you rents, Okay. Yes. If your MLS shows you rent, not all MLSs around the country show rents. So Florida does, for sure. And the way I think it works, don't 100% quote me on this, is the way I think it works is that if you're an agent that can get paid by doing rentals by just being an agent kind of a thing, I think then your MLS has more info than, like in Denver, we don't do that, right? As an agent, we don't represent tenants per se kind of thing. So it's very limited information. And then Anthony, it doesn't make a difference. The formula I'm going to give you for rentals doesn't make it. It's a single family house, multifamily house. It doesn't make any difference. You'll see how this is all going to work. That's a good question though. Okay, so if you don't know what rents are, you can look it up. Can you also call around local property management companies and also ask them, hey, I've got 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath in this area. What do you think the going rent is? Absolutely, you can go do that. Okay. So rents, here's the thing. Everybody always gives you a rent in what kind of number? Monthly, correct? Now, when you look at Zillow, you look at Rent-A-Meter, you look at all that stuff, obviously it gives you a wide span. Do you go with the higher or the low, or do you go somewhere in the middle?
I go with somewhere in the middle just to be more attractive, honestly.
Just somewhere, go with the common sense, right? So you got monthly
Yeah.
rent, you got to multiply it by 12. So this is a number in our industry that we call an annualized rent. Okay. Annualized rent. So I'm left-handed, but my mouse is on my right hand. So just roll with me. Okay. So let's do some math as we're going along here. So on this little Santa Ana thing, what do you think the rent is going to be on the 2-bedroom, 2-bath? Because it looks like one unit's a 2-2 and one unit's a 1-1. So what do you think the rent is going to be on the 2-2?
Maybe if there's two people, I'm thinking around 1,500, maybe 1,600.
Doesn't matter if
Like,
there's one person or two people. If
yeah,
because you can't, because right now what you gotta do is, we're not breaking it down by renting by the room. Okay.
okay.
So this is just, now you've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. What do you think it'll rent for? Now, we can talk about room rentals for transitional housing, for whatever the case is, if that's a market out there. But usually you're going to get more, but just go, well, let me ask you this, I guess. Are you going to rent it by the room, or are you going to rent it to, a couple with a young kid or a single mom or whatever the case may be?
So I like I said, I'm in the medical industry, so I was gonna rent it to like traveling nurses.
Got it.
But I mean, that was the question I was gonna go about. Do I single each room out, or do I like each actual condominium is itself its own thing? So I'm not too sure yet.
Okay. So a 2-2, just to make stuff simple, would regular people pay $1,500 a month for a 2-2?
No,
Okay, what would regular people pay?
man. Around 1,200 maybe. I'm not too sure.
Okay. Let's I'm just gonna do something real quick.
Mhm.
I know you guys can only see the thing. I'm just gonna
I'm almost there too, I promise.
I'm gonna pull it up on Renometer real quick.
Okay.
I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just going to rentameter.com. I'm putting in the address,
Yeah.
2-bedroom, 1.5-bath. Actually, let me see if it lets me share this, Debbie. I just don't want to lose them on the whiteboard.
Mhm.
Well, I guess I don't even have anything written on the whiteboard. What difference does it make? Okay. So everyone sees Rent-A-Meter now? Okay. So the average on Rent-A-Meter on a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath, because it's a house, They're saying the average is 1907,
Oh, wow.
and that's based on 12 two-bedroom rentals, right?
Okay.
If I back it up and we go to the 1-1, the 1-1's at 1200. So
Okay.
let's jump back to my whiteboard real quick. Okay, but we're going to be conservative. Existing whiteboard. Okay. Okay. So this 2-2, it had it at 1900, but let's
Oh,
be conservative, and we're going to
oh,
go at,
oh, man.
you good?
So I'm definitely here. Um, it's a derelict. It looks okay. I'll let you continue. Sorry, I'm just
$1,500. Okay. So what is 1,500 times 12? Someone got a calculator?
that's about what 16,000.
It's 18,000.
Yep.
18,000.
Okay. So now this is your rent just on one of the units, and I'm just running it as a single family house, okay? Or actually we can do it because this will answer Anthony's question. So that 1-1, I did the 2-1 at, or the 2-2 at 1,500, the 1-1, I'm just gonna do it 1,000 for the purposes of examples. So now we're at $12,000. Everybody sticking with me?
Yes.
So now we're at a total of 30K gross rent. Fair?
Mhm.
Okay.
Correct.
So now, what are the expenses this property has? First one is property taxes. Do you know what the taxes are by any chance?
No, not off the top of my head. I'd have to kind of plug in some numbers.
Okay. 1,500.
Okay.
Okay. 1,500. So we got 1,500 in property taxes. Vacancy. You typically, even though you might be in a hot rental area, a good rule of thumb is to do 10% vacancy. So 10% of 30,000 is 3K. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this tax number seems a little low. So I'm wondering if it's kind of like an illegal duplex kind of thing. Like
Um,
it's only being assessed on the 2-2, but that doesn't matter. I mean, I mean, you can verify all this, especially as your brother's a realtor. But I mean,
yeah.
that seems a little bit low. Okay,
Okay.
insurance. Insurance has increased drastically, right? Drastically. Are you close? Is Modesto close to the wildfires or anything like that?
No, not even close.
'Cause Modesto is like Northern California, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Northern
got it.
California. So,
Okay. So what do you think insurance is going to be on this?
uh, um, I don't know. It's kind of a rough area. I'm right here outside the house. I don't know. We can just give like an average answer, honestly.
Um, what do you think?
I, I, I'm too new to like even know what like insurance usually runs anyway.
All right. So you're going to put in a number. I'm just going to put in. I'm going to put
All
in
right.
2K. Everybody go with that? Did somebody
Yep.
say
Yeah.
okay? I'm just going to bump it up. Just again, because insurance is skyrocketing, right? So now, what does
Yeah.
this add up to? This is now 6,500. Correct? Everyone sticking with me?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody stick.
Correct.
Okay. So now the question is, in theory, you also need to factor in maintenance and repairs.
Oh yeah.
And this is where your formula gets a little weird on a cash flowing asset, okay?
Yeah.
Once a property is remodeled completely, then, you know, rule of thumb would say if you've done a complete remodel to this property,
Mhm.
if you took 10%, so 3K a year on a remodeled property, would that be enough money? And that's a question I'm going to ask you guys. Just think through that logically real quick. If the house was fully remodeled, do you think 3K a year is enough money to put towards annualized repairs?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. If it's fully remodeled and your guys are good, it's probably enough. Okay. So now this would take you up to 9,500. But I'm going to tell you where this is where a lot of people will make a mistake. Is the problem is they do the world's cheapest get the property ready.
Hey, Al, I know that you are sharing your whiteboard, but we're just seeing a spinning thing. So maybe try stop sharing and sharing again.
Hold on.
I can see it move. Oh, okay.
I
You
can
just
see
see
it.
the wheel moving.
Oh, really? You can't see it?
No, I see his writing, like his
Yeah.
newest.
Oh, okay,
see
then
his
maybe
writing
it's
too.
just me.
Can everybody see it?
Yeah, I see it as
can.
you're writing.
Okay. 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 So here is a mistake a lot of people make, right? Is you'll go in and you'll be like, oh, well, I only got to get it rent ready. So rent ready means what? Lipstick on a pig, right?
To be just livable, yeah.
I'm just going to do a little painting. I'm going to do a little flooring. Okay, my
Yeah.
friend, here's the problem, right? Electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Those are just simple things, right? These are just simple things. Do you know how much this stuff adds up to?
Probably a lot.
When something goes wrong in that rental?
Oh.
And so now here's where the disconnect is. Here's where the disconnect is what people make is what do you think happens here? 3K. Now I'm in Denver, and if a furnace goes out, I mean, I used to pay 1,800. Now I drop about 3K just on a furnace, right? Because prices have gone up. So if that furnace goes out on me and I've only allocated 3K from gross rents, do you see how I'm already in trouble for that year? Well, what if the water heater goes out? What if we have problems with the air conditioning? What if, we have a leak? What if, I mean, it's on and on and on. Also, here's the other issue is this 3K comes out of what number? What number does it come out of? Paying attention.
Annualized rents.
Annualized rents. What's your guarantee that you've earned the annualized rents? Right? You see where I'm going here, my friends? So this is where you gotta think a little bit. Okay, you gotta think a little bit. Now, what's the right answer? Is to be conservative. Okay, so when we're down here, okay, 30K we were conservative. Okay, 6,500 we were okay. 3K as deferred maintenance if your property is in good condition, yeah, it should be okay. It should be okay. But if you know, and I'm not an advocate of being a slumlord, okay? But if you know you're just going to get in and do just the most basic stuff, you need to bump this number up or you're going to get into trouble. You're going to get into trouble.
Okay.
And also you need to have it in the bank already. Because the craziest thing happens when a human moves into the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden everything breaks. right? So all of a sudden, you know, where you didn't expect problems, you have problems. So you definitely, this is a one that people make, they just make a lot of errors on. Now, if you've got to come in and you're going to throw 40 grand into this place, let's say, then, well, that means you're going to be negative off your cash flow year one, correct? Like if you just did
Correct.
simple math, right? If you just did simple math, you're going to be negative off your cash flow. Now, I know I have a lot of lines going, but 30 minus 9,500, for lack of better terms, is 20K. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you dumped 40K into that property, and that's not even accounting for this, well, we are accounting for 3K, it's going to take you 2 years of perfection
Just to break even.
just to bring your rehab number back. Okay.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing when it gets to like remodels, I want to look at everybody for a minute here. Oops. Is when it gets to remodels, or when it gets, and I'll jump back in this format real quick. But the biggest thing is when you guys get to these rentals, you need to be more long-term thinking. Okay. You need to be more long-term thinking. So, and you got to think through, okay, how long am I going to hold this, and what is this going to look like? And sometimes the biggest pain on a cash flowing asset is sometimes you're putting a lot of money up front to bring it up to par, and then for you to come full cycle to break even on the cash flow takes a number of years. Now, beyond that, obviously there's appreciation of the property, but appreciation only matters when. That's a question. When does appreciation only matter?
When you
When you
sell
sell
or
it.
when you refinance.
You got it. Whoever said that. Big go. When you sell or when you refinance. That's it. That's the only time the value of the property matters, correct? So this cash flow is of rental. So I'm going to jump back in the whiteboard real quick. But what I want you to do is sit here and say, okay, why it keeps giving me all these warnings, is, and this is why, remember when I said the 1% rule doesn't really always work? That was an old school way of like quickly saying, oh, okay, well, this is going to make sense. Well, not when you start looking at all these other factors of the reality of owning a rental property, right? So here's, at the end of the day, whoa, here's your formula. What is it doing? Here's your formula. So you got your gross rents, which are annualized, minus gross expenses, gives you what's called an NOI. What does NOI stand for? Those of you guys that are seasoned.
Net operating income.
Net operating income. This is what your building is making. Okay. So we'll say in this case, and I'm gonna still keep it super simple. We're gonna say that the net operating income is at 20K. Okay. And that's not we're not accounting for remodel or anything like that. We're just saying the true net is 20K. Well, what you would do is you divide that by the purchase price, by the cost of what you're buying the building for. So this thing was listed, I think, for 350, or right, 340. What was it? 350.
350, yeah. Just
Yeah, 350. Okay. So this thing's listed for 350K. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take $20,000, divide it by $350,000, multiply it by 100, and we get a number 5.17. So those of you guys that are experienced, what's the 5.17?
The cap.
This is called your capitalization rate.
mm,
Now, keep in mind your cap rate does not include debt service, nor did it account for if you got to do major remodel stuff. Because if you got to put
yeah,
40K into this property, we'll just say, now this number is 390, correct?
correct, yeah.
Yep. So let's see how that changes something. Now you go 20,000 divided by 390,000. You're basically at a 5.12. Now, here's where the rule of thumb really applies. and this is the rule of thumb I was taught versus the 1%er. If I'm borrowing money and my money costs more than 5.12 or 5.17%, is that a good or a bad deal?
Can you say that again, Al?
If I borrowed money
Mm,
and my money costs more than 5.12 or 5.17%, is it
That's a
a good
bad
or
deal.
a bad deal?
Bad deal.
Bad deal. Okay. So your interest rate ideally should be cheaper than your what?
Cap rate.
Than your
Cap rate.
cap. Okay. Ideally. Okay. In a perfect world. Now, there's different ways to look at that. So good job, Michael, on the chat. So now you got to understand. So we'll go back to kind of an Owen question here now, right? Kind of thing. He sounds like Owen's got some money to put down, wants to know if they should leverage that, things of that nature. Okay. So we'll just, Owen, I'm just going to kind of stick with this deal for a second because we got some preliminary math going. So we'll just say, well, this is where it gets tricky, right? You might borrow money on the 350, but then if you got 50K, you need 50K to put it into your remodel. So now it was, well, what kind of financing could you structure at 350K? Okay. So a couple things right now. A lot of lenders, do you think they're being aggressive or conservative?
Conservative.
Conservative,
Yeah.
right? Ultra conservative, man, right? Ultra conservative. So here's the issue. If you can go and get DSCR, does everybody know what a debt service coverage ratio loan is? Does everybody know that term?
I've heard of it.
Okay. So a DSCR, this is the thing. It's a traditional lender trying to tell you that they've got a creative loan. Okay. That's really what it is at the end of the day. But who's been shopping DSCRs? What's the interest rate?
I'm gonna go, a client of mine just closed it somewhere in the high sevens.
Yep. So we're just going to go with an aggregate average of 8. Okay. What was their credit score?
Excellent, probably in the 800s.
Oh, yep. How much did they have to put down?
I want to say it was 30%.
30%. Okay. Okay. So they had to put 30% down. So this is a traditional lender trying to say, I've got a very creative loan for a cash flowing asset. Can you guys tell me what's creative about this? Show me one thing that's creative about this.
I mean, nothing really. The lender has less risk. He has 10% more down payment. It's a great credit score. The guy's unlikely to default, and the interest rate is about 1.5 higher than a typical conventional.
Yep. So this is okay. I'm a fan of DSCR, but you just got to know what you're doing, what you're getting into, right? Because a lender tries to make you think like this is the best loan since sliced bread. And no offense to any of you that are lenders, right? Um, but when you really look at it, you're like, well, how are you doing me a favor? Right? Like you're not really doing me a favor. I'm putting a ton of money down. I'm paying a lot of money, and I got to have excellent credit. What favor is it? Now let's compare it to a hard money loan on what somebody would do for a rental property. What's the interest rate? Anybody know?
I'm gonna guess 10.
About 11, yeah.
I've seen it go as high as 14
Yeah.
right now. So if you got a guy, like we have one guy here that I know locally, just because of relationship, he would do something at an 8.5, right? But he still wants 30% down kind of thing. And then he only wants it for 12 months, right? So, but a lot of what I'm seeing is they're coming in about 14%. 12 is on the low side, 14 on this. Credit, do they care much about your credit?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, but
Not
not
enough
really, right?
to kill the deal. Yeah.
You don't need to be here, right? If you got a 480, you probably got some explaining to do. If you got a 620, you're probably okay, right? And then, but the question is now is here's the variable of how much you need to have down with a hard money lender on this, right? Like, like I ran a deal by a guy the other day, and I said, okay, let's just say he really likes Ohio, right? So I just said arbitrarily, I made up a deal in my head. I said, okay, let's just say this house in Cleveland was worth like 90K, and I said I could get it for 70K, right? This is what I could put it under contract for, turnkey, ready to go. We did inspections, right? It would rent. Would he fund the 70K? That was basically my $1 million question to him. And he said, yeah, something like this, I'd fund the 70K. He goes, I'd give somebody the whole 70K for 1 year at 14% interest. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys, let me exit out of here real quick. I'll again, if you drop your emails, Debbie, if we can capture their emails, maybe you can just copy and paste them or something like that. I'll send you guys a document that you can fill out. But I mean, that was a very loose way of kind of doing cash flow properties. And there's a little bit more that goes into it, but I don't want to monopolize the time just on cash flow and properties. But the biggest thing is where I have seen the biggest mistakes is when it comes to deferred maintenance and repairs. That is where I've seen hands down the biggest mistakes. Now, here's a little tip I will give you. And out of my 21 markets, I've had a lot of properties in Detroit, St. Louis, Kansas City, and Birmingham, Alabama. Okay. They all have kind of the same, AKA demographics, kind of the similar price points and things of that nature. But one of the little tricks that I learned along the way was, and I've had tons of government-based housing programs like Section 8. I've got a bunch of transitional housing stuff going right now in St. Paul, is I didn't really need a property management company if the government was giving me rent every month, right? So what I learned was to put in your lease that you're going to have a handyman. You don't have to label them as a handyman, right? You can say subcontractor of 123 Holdings or whatever you want to call yourself. That they're going to go in and basically change a furnace filter every 60 days or every 90 days, whatever you want it to be, right? What I realized was you can't give a tenant like 4 filters or 6 filters and expect for them to change it. It's just never going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. The odd tenant maybe will do it, but the average tenant will not do it. So by putting that in there, what was I doing for myself? Now think about it. I've got government subsidized rent, so that's getting guaranteed. But what am I doing for myself and the asset by sending somebody in every 60 days?
You're protecting your asset.
I'm
Providing an
protecting.
opportunity to inspect the property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell people like in the world of business, right? Sometimes I think it's always like, well, I'm gonna win, right? And the thing is you just gotta sometimes outsmart a little bit. So the thing is like you make it look like this is a service you're providing, right? Joe is gonna come, change your furnace filter, um, take care of any other minor things that might be going on. And you would be surprised sometimes at the things that get let go. And I'm going to tell you one story. House in Detroit. Lady was there and her kids, real nice lady. And my guy goes in to change a filter, and he says, "Hey, how's everything going? Is there anything else that you want me to be aware of? Can I, do you mind if I just check your sinks, flush your toilet, things, just make sure there's no leaks going on while I'm here?" Most people are okay with that. Trust me. She mentions that her sewer line has been backing up.
Hmm.
And so he was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, like like once a week or so, the sewer line backs up. Now, in the basement was unfinished. And he's like, well, what do you do? And she was like, oh, I just clean it up. So
What?
he calls me, right? He calls me. He's like, hey, man, we got a problem here. And he goes, she's saying that her sewer line's backing up like once a week. And I'm like, huh? And I go, well, what did she tell you? And he's like, I don't know. She just said she cleans it up. And I was like, well, did you ask her why she didn't like call? And he goes, no. So anyway, I talked to her and I'm like, you know, I'll leave her name out of it, but because I do remember it. But I'm like, Miss, you know, so and so, and I'm like, is there any reason you haven't called me? And she was just like, well, you know, you're such a kind man, and I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, huh? So anyway, needless to say, we had to do a little spot repair, and we fixed the problem for her. But if he think through that for 2 seconds, just think through that for 2 seconds. If he hadn't gone to the house, how long do you think she would have continued to live in that condition? Maybe forever? I don't really know, right? So what it also is, it's a point of communication and it's a point of contact and it's a point of just kind of being personal. Okay. So that's one little trick. Second trick is if you have self-pay tenants and you don't want to be the manager and or maybe they're out of state, something like that. Everybody always asks me like, Al, what is the like how do you interview a property management company? Really, there's one question. What's the one question? There's only one question. What is it? Anybody?
I have no idea.
What's your rate?
What's your rate? That's a good question. So, two questions. That is a good question.
How much of a return they're trying to, I guess make off the property, absent, I mean, give or take their fees.
Yep, yep. Their fees are good, right? Which is what is their rate? So yeah, those are there are some important questions, but there's one that people never ask.
How do you deal with
Hmm.
problems?
What do you do when this yo-yo don't pay?
Oh, okay.
It's an important
Um,
one. It's a very important one, right?
Yeah.
And I've said it before in other webinars that Debbie's had me on. It is a super important question because they'll tell you how great their software system is and this and that. And, you know, while they'll substantiate why they want 50% of the rent, or I'm being funny here, right? They'll tell you how great they are. And then the minute you say, well, what do you do when so-and-so doesn't pay? They'll just like go quiet.
Mm.
Well, what do I need you for? I only need you when someone doesn't pay. Right? So so it's just one of those things, right? Again, just outwit these people at their own game. So I'm not anti-property management, but they've got to be of value to you. They got to serve you something. Because you know, the whole again mantra of why are you dealing with tenants' toilets at 2 a.m.? I don't know. Why are you? Do you think they are? Do you honestly think that a property management company answers the phone at 2 a.m.?
No,
I mean, probably not.
They do not. They don't. They
they have a
don't.
service.
They get to it at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, trust me. Like, so, but here, and I don't want to go off topic, but I'm going to tell you a funny story. So, we had one house, it was room rentals. It was kind of like a trade school. They were in like learning how to fix airplanes or wind turbines. It was like that kind of like trade school. So we rented out all these rooms, right? And I silence my phone at night, but I'm up pretty early in the morning, right? 5:30, I'm up. And I wake up and I've got like 40 missed calls, like 63 text messages. And I'm like, oh my Lord. And I see all the missed calls are like from the tenants in this house. And I'm reading all these text messages like, we need you to call us, we need you to call us. And I'm just looking at this and I'm like, and it, you know, more and more stuff is being said. I'm reading. So basically what happened was one of the guys that lived in the house was super drunk. He was drinking and driving. He came home. He ran into the neighbor's tree in the front yard and ended up getting arrested, right? So, because not, you know, cops came, he got arrested. So I'm thinking to myself after I looked at all those text messages, like, what did you want me to do at 2:30 a.m.? That's a 911 call. Does that make sense? Like you
Yeah.
call the right person. What do you want me to do at 2:30 in the morning? So I think it's always funny again when people are like, "Oh, you don't have to deal with anything at 2:30 in the morning." Yeah, I'm not going to deal with it anyway. If something's going on at 2:30 in the morning, it's probably a 911 call, right? Like so, it just put things into perspective on cash flow. Okay, let me go through fix and flips real quick, and I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna share the document that we're gonna email with to you guys. Because there's a few things I'm very, very particular about on my fix and flips. And it starts at the very, very top number. Is the
I've
after
got an
repair value.
address.
Okay. The after repair value is what is this property going to actually sell for? My friends, do you believe a wholesaler?
No, absolutely not. Sorry.
Absolutely not. And no offense to some of you that said you're a
Yeah.
wholesaler. Please, if you can be a wholesaler that gives a legitimate ARV, I'll buy you a Kit Kat. Like they are
Also
wrong
comps, Al.
every single time, right?
Yeah, comps too.
Oh my. So how do you come up with it? It's your comps. So now, this is how I pull my comps. I start very, 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 very tight. I only go 90 days back. I only go 0.25 mile radius.
Um,
Very similar square footage. Plus or minus 200 is what I use. Everybody understand what I meant in English? Okay.
Can you say it again?
Plus
Say
or
those three criteria.
minus 200. Same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms. So that's how I start. Okay, that's how I start. And actually, let me show you something here real quick.
I've got an
Hey, Al.
address if you want to run one.
I'm gonna run it on my MLS. So
Hey,
that
Doc, quickly, you said you go back 90 days, and what was the 0.25?
0.25 mile radius. So
But
let me
Al, in a market like this one, 0.25 miles isn't going to get you much.
hold on, my friend. Hold
All
on.
right.
Hold on, my friend. I'm gonna tell you all the red flags of what's going on in the industry.
All right.
Let me just, I'm logging into my MLS real quick on a house I'm gonna go look at tomorrow. So I'm just gonna get everything set up though. Share my screen. All right, my friends. Okay. So I'm in my MLS. Okay, I'm gonna go look at this house tomorrow. 2767 West Iliff Avenue. The wholesaler wants it for 324. Right, that's what they want to sell it for. So I'm active, pending, closed. 0 to 90 days. Single family house only. 0.25 mile radius. This is what I do right off the bat. First step is I come here and I look at, well, here's the house, and I see two comps. So I got one listed at 545. I got one closed at 885. So something's wrong right off the bat. Does that make sense? We
Yep.
already know, do not use 885 as a comp. Okay? Because let me put in this, let me put in the address real quick. Did it follow to Zillow, Debbie, or no? It did? Okay,
Yes, it did.
cool. All right. Let me go back to criteria. Let me copy and paste this address. Oh. Doesn't want to show me the house. There you go. Did it follow to my Google Maps?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is the beautiful gem. Who knows when this picture was taken, but this is the bucket of crap I'm gonna go look at tomorrow.
It was
Now,
taken December 2024.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So I'm pretty familiar with this area, right? How would you describe this area?
Tired.
Modest.
Modest.
Yeah, definitely working class.
There you go. There you go. Working class. So here's one thing I've learned too, you guys, is just because you make a comment Does it mean that you're being derogatory?
No.
No, not at all, right?
Mhm.
Not at all, right? So I will say that I'm a person of color, right? So if a neighborhood is a black neighborhood or it's a Mexican neighborhood or it's a white neighborhood, you're not being derogatory. Does that make sense? You got to know who your end buyer is. My
Yeah.
God, like it doesn't mean that you're being disrespectful by any means. So it's sometimes I'm like this we're like crazy here. Like we can't you know what I mean? Like it's okay. It's a blue collar working class neighborhood. Okay, so good indication. So you're right. There's no comps now. We know. I'm just going to click results for 2 seconds, and I already know what the issue with this is. Right, this was built brand new. Okay, so
Wow.
right. So don't get too excited. Let's go back to criteria. We know that this house was older. So I'm just going to say 1980 and less. Okay. So now we know that there's only one comp. So there's only a few things now that I can do differently. Okay. I could potentially go back 4 months. Didn't change anything. So now I got to go to radius. So now when I go to radius, again, this is Denver, so I'm very, very familiar with this. Okay. I know that for the most part, these are all they're fairly similar. Does that make sense? For the most part. Okay. I know that. But are there neighborhoods, and I could show you another neighborhood where this is one area and this is one area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you comp these?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. Okay. Now, I'm going to pull up results and I'm doing things a little bit just so you can see the different steps that I'm going through. So the house I'm looking at, including the basement tomorrow, is 1,600 square feet. Now, realtors in Denver list basements differently, whether it's conforming or non-conforming, as long as we can disclose. I'm allowed to list the basement square footage, even if it's non-conforming, meaning so the basement was remodeled with no permits and there's no egress windows. As long as I say basement to be considered non-conforming, I can still put that square footage in finished square footage. It's kind of a cool rule we have here. That's not true necessarily in other markets. Okay. So that's why, like some people say, well, why don't you do price per square foot? Well, in some markets, price per square foot will work. In some markets, price per square foot doesn't work. Okay. So in Denver, price per square foot doesn't work just based on the disparity of what I just said about basements. Because some agents, they will not list the basement square footage even though it's finished because it's non-conforming. So we don't have equitable playing field when it comes to how we list. So for example, like, places like California where you got the addition on 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 the addition, there's no equitable sense of how realtors are listing that. But let's just say you're in a neighborhood where everything's on slab, right? It's got a crawl space. Okay, then maybe square footage does work. Price per square footage does work. So I know that this house, if I decide to buy it, it's going to be 1,600 square foot finished because I've already seen the photos. Okay, so now you've got some stuff at 938, 704, 710. So if I just said, okay, I'm gonna tighten up the living thing, and I'm gonna do 1,400 to 1,800, and I don't remember the square footage. What's happened there? Hold on. Whoa. Did you guys see just what happened? Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to end up having one of the biggest homes with finished square feet. Now, in a working class neighborhood, is that a good or a bad thing?
Good.
Good.
Bad.
Okay. So I'm going to remove this one real quick, the one for 8. Let me discard it. Okay. So now I'm back here. So now if I say, okay, I'm going to be 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and this is literally, I will keep playing and playing and playing until I try to just figure out what is this thing really, really worth. Okay, so now I have look at something because this is okay. This one's the one. Oh, this is the one that technically is in Englewood. So we've crossed over from Denver to Englewood, right around Zuni. So they're probably both equidistant, but let's take a look at the photos. So now when I look at this, can I make that bucket of crap look better than this?
Sure.
Sure, sure. This is a pretty basic remodel, right? And now you might say, well, why is it a basic remodel? Well, I mean, I don't know. Is that exactly the world's sexiest kitchen? Functional, right? But nothing too great. And maybe that's the best they could do with the layout. And they were just limited, right? It appears that they painted the trim the same color they painted the walls, but it could be just the way the photographer's work is, but please don't do that, right? Ceiling should be white, trim should be white. What's the in color on the walls? Does everybody know? What's the in
Gray.
agreeable gray from Sherwin-Williams? It is different if you buy it from Sherwin-Williams to Home Depot. It's different. I promise you that. Sherwin-Williams agreeable gray comes out much looking better. Okay, now, does this house look remodeled?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So let's take a look at it. So, you know, whatever. Cute? Yeah, cute.
Yeah.
Not sure why they didn't have it face the front, but that's neither here nor there. But not my house. Now, would you take this out? If you were flipping, would you take this out?
No.
I would. I would have
Yeah,
gutted
I
it.
would.
I'd have got rid of it. Okay. I'd have got rid of it. Okay. That's just me. In a basement, I would have left it, but in a main room, I would get rid of it. And I know it works good. It gives off good heat. I get it. I get it.
Why would you get rid of it?
Why would I get rid of it? Number one, I think it's an eyesore. Number two, kids don't listen.
Yeah, I forgot about kids.
So, and again, in a basement, sometimes I've left them, but in a family room, I usually take it. Also, what does this tell you? What is this right here? Can you see where my mouse is?
Forced
Yeah.
there.
Floor
No.
slide. So what does that mean?
No.
Means you have central air conditioning and central heat.
We got heat, right? So we
No.
So you don't
need
need that. It's just
don't
there.
really need this. Yeah. So now, is this an in look? And I know we're supposed to talk about numbers, but is this an in look? Because this is important on comps, though.
I say, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So white shakers, gray charcoal, the black is in for your faucet, even for your sink, for your knobs or pulls, black is in. Okay. And again, this isn't the greatest kitchen. But you know, I mean, they've done a pretty clean look, right? So you see where I was talking about on the lights, and they're doing everything with the black. So good or bad remodel?
Decent.
Good.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? It's clean, right? They've done some stuff. Okay, so this now, it's 1,900 square feet. The one I'm looking at tomorrow is going to be about 1,600 square feet. This has a 1 car attached. The one I'm looking at tomorrow has a 1 car attached, 4 bedroom, 2 bath. Now they start at 565. They dropped to 555. They went pending. Real quick, does that mean that's where they went under contract at?
No.
No, you don't know. You do not know. You do not know. You do not know. Also, look at how many days it took to go pending. Is this concerning? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is that a 53?
Yep.
It's under 60. I'd say that's okay.
Okay. So who said no? One of you said no. Who said no? Oh, who said yes? It is concerning. My bad. Who said yes?
Yeah.
Was it Clarence? Yeah. Okay. So in a hot market, right? What I'm used to is you flip, you put it under contract on a Friday, you have tons of showings, you have multiple offers, and you're under contract by Monday, right? That is a flipper's dream, my friend, right? With a closing of less than 30 days, with easiness of the inspection. But if you do a good remodel, you're not worried about the inspection anyway. Obviously, if it's a cash offer and they want to close next week, that's even better, right? This is what makes a flipper happy, okay? Doesn't always work like that. Now, the market has been slow, right? And it's been slow because of what? Interest rates, volatility. We're not sure what's going on, right? We have no people. Consumer confidence is a little wacky, right? Consumer confidence is a little wacky. So we're not really sure what's going on. People have been a little hesitant the last 2 months. So in a normal time frame, like 2 years ago, 53 days would have scared the living daylights out of me. It would have scared the living daylights out of me. That I would have been like, no, 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 no. 53 days today, I'm actually like, and we're going to hope that market conditions get better. Okay. So now let's go back to MLS. Now, is one comp enough for me to pull data? Like, am I good with this? No, no, my friends. Okay, so now I'm going to come back out here, take away the 4.2. I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to say, okay, let me see if I can make sense of the 9. Okay. So 220, we know this is a bucket of crap. A 2.1 at 700 square feet, we know that's a little too low. Okay. 411, 400. I'm going to keep them just so we can look at them, but I'm going to get rid of these other two real quick. So this is a harder house to comp than most, right? We already looked at this one. Okay, so here's one, started at 550, active at 545, 48 days on the market, 1,000 square feet, a lot of parking.
Wow.
Is that a good looking house from the front?
That's a very nice looking house.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, why didn't it sell?
Right.
Okay, we're looking at the inside, right? Does this look nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Now, is this a homeowner or is it a flipper?
The flipper.
You
Yeah.
think?
If it's a flipper, they did a lot for staging and even a KitchenAid and an espresso machine. It's probably a homeowner.
Oh,
But you know what I
homeowner.
thought was really weird, Al? If you go
That's a
back to the
homeowner.
living room, did you see that the barn door way up high? Like, what was that
Yeah.
about?
So
What was that?
So it could
Yeah.
be, I've seen this before. I've seen this before that it's almost like an attic, like behind this, like a pitched roof kind of thing. Like it ends up being like storage place. I've seen it, never in a living room. I've seen it coming from like a garage on the top. I've seen it. I've never seen it like this. This is an interesting way, and maybe that's why it didn't sell, right? But this is definitely a homeowner house, right? But one thing is, let me see if I can. So decent backyard. So is this a little concerning? Is this a little concerning that this house hasn't sold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now this is what's weird in the world, right?
45.
The other one was at 555, went under contract. This is at 545 and it's still sitting. So when we go back to the map, this is it right here.
Wow.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, but Al, that one's only like it was 1,047 square feet or something, so it was substantially smaller.
Substantially smaller, right? So they're overpriced for the size of the house compared to that other one that was under contract, right? Good catch, Debbie. So now this one's 40 days on the market, 525 to 515, less than 1,000 square feet. A one car. Let's take a look at this. So is this remodeled?
I'm looking for the
Stage.
espresso machine that Deborah likes to.
Yeah. So this is a flipper now. This is a flipper, right? So now here's the thing. Are they overpriced?
Yeah.
They're overpriced
Yes.
size, right? Okay. So now we come to this one. Active at 400K, 1,300 square feet.
2
No,
days.
no garage. Just came out, right? So roof looks pretty good. Okay, homeowner or flipper?
Homeowner.
Homeowner.
Homeowner. Is this a good deal for somebody at 400K who's looking to buy a house?
Yes.
Great deal. Okay. Not a big deal, right? 1,300 square feet. This is the one we looked at that was almost 1,900 square feet. Go to the next one for 475. Closed at 475, 4 days in the MLS, 1,800 square feet. Bunch
That's a
of
good one.
2-car, 1-car. Okay. Just remember 475. Brick house too. Look at that.
Yep.
Big lot. Ugh.
Mm.
So this is 475, needs work. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, uncle's on the computer. My house is we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old living with us. So remodeled,
Flipper.
yeah, flipper, kind of a cheap flip though, right?
Yep.
Those are AI staged photos.
Yep, 411. Okay, my friends. So let's go back here. What the house I'm looking at is going to be 1,600 square feet, remodeled nicely, 4-bedroom, 2-bath with a 1-car. What's my price? What's my ARV?
Around 500.
Around 500?
Yeah, plus a little over 5. Be
Yeah,
good price.
a little over 5. So I'm actually going to run my numbers at 490.
Okay.
Why? Share again. Okay, so everybody put in 490 as the ARV. Okay, I'm gonna be a little conservative. Okay, so we're at 490,000. Now, when you go to sell the house, there's costs, right? Once it's fixed up, there's cost.
Mhm.
Now, you got to pay agents. Now, if you are the agent, it's your own listing. So this is what I do. I put 1% in there so the brokerage is happy. And then I take the net of that number and I put it back into our profit pool. Everybody understand what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you pay the buyer's agent who brings the buyer to buy your beautiful fixed up home?
3.
Yep. Whatever your industry standard is. Do not be that flipper that is a nightmare. Does that make sense? We all know who they are. Okay. Whatever the buyer's agent is supposed to make, they're supposed to make. And you know what? If you're not an agent, you should feel the pain of being a buyer's agent. So you know how you can do a ride along with the police department? Yeah, you should do a ride along with the buyer's agent, with the world's pickiest couple that are not on the same page with 2 young screaming kids. You'll understand that they earn every penny of the 2.5, 2.8, or 3%. So if you've never done it, you should try it. Now, closing cost. This is a big one, and this is where people are making a huge mistake in running their numbers. Right now, almost every offer you're going to get is going to come with a seller concessions number. That was not the case 2 years ago, right? People were overpaying, appraisal gaps, blah, 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 blah. Not today. Not today. They're asking you to pay for their lender closing costs. They're asking you to buy down their rate. They're asking you for all kinds of stuff. What's the right number? In Denver, it's somewhere between 12,500 and 20,000. So what's the number I'm going to put on my spreadsheet?
20.
20. Okay. So we're at 490. Now, here we pay an agent either 2.5 or 2.8. So I'm going to do the 2.8. And then don't worry about the 1% to me because it's not going to be in my formula, but I'm going to do quick math. And then obviously there's title company fees, right? So when you go to sell, there's title insurance policies. Now you would have done what's called a holdover when you bought it and things of that nature, but there's title company fees. So what I do is I take a percent for title. We'll say 3% to a buyer's agent. So we're already at 4% off the top. So when I do 490,000, I times it by 0.96%. Everybody sticking with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're down to 470. I just told you to do 20,000 for seller concessions, or at least that's what I'm going to do. Okay. 20,000. Now, rehab costs. This is a little tricky and we don't have enough time tonight to go through this. But but what's the dollar amount to rehab a house, right? So when I go through tomorrow, I'm going to look at it and I'll, in my head, I'll be like, okay, roof, gutters, siding, windows, whatever the case may be, right? And I'm going to come up with a rehab number on the spot. Okay. Some of it is an art, like I don't go around counting windows and things of that nature. It's just because I've been doing it for so long. But when I estimate from the photos, the furnace and HVAC look good. There were some things that look good. So I'm just going to say that, it's 1,600 square feet and it's going to cost me, write something down real quick. I'm just going to say I'm at $40 a square foot. So 40 times 1,600 is a remodel of 64,000. Okay. I'm just going to round it up and I'm just going to say it's a 70K remodel. Okay. Just stick with me. This would be a whole nother training. So 450,000 minus 70,000. I'm now down to 380,000. Okay. I don't have to borrow money. But if you do, and you're going to borrow hard money, you've got to know the cost of what it's going to cost you to borrow hard money. Now, here's the thing, my friends. I just did a call with a hard money lender the other day, and the dude told me that he's making people run their numbers with 8 to 10 months of reserves. I'm like, huh?
Sure.
I'm like, dude, why? You can remodel in a month. And then he was like, well, you can remodel in a month. Most people are 90 days. And then look at your comps. You're saying it's roughly 60 days on the market. So now you're at 5 months. Plus, what if something goes wrong? So he's like, I want to see that they have holding costs for 8 months. So here's the thing, whatever city you're in, if you're going to be a flipper, you got to know what the cost of money is. You got to know what the cost of money is. You have to. And then it's like, I don't even come down to desired profit. Right now, what I'm at is I'm at 380,000. Okay. Now, I told you the wholesaler wanted 324. So now that leaves me an aggregate profit of 56,000. So now some of you said list for 500, little over. Okay. What if seller concessions are 10K instead of 20K? I don't know. Don't know if they are, don't know if they are. But what I know is if I go look at this house tomorrow and I feel good that I can sell this for 490 and I can do the rehab for 70, do I say yes that I'm interested in this deal tomorrow? Leave it right now a 56K net.
Sure.
Yeah, all day, every day. Because if I can negotiate instead of 20K, 15K, or 20K to 12.5, I just put an extra 5 or 8 in my pocket. Okay. If I really can do the remodel for 60K, I just put an extra 10K. Okay. These are the moving parts. So for those of you that are wholesalers, I had a wholesaler not too long ago tell me she goes 1 year back in comps. And the look I'm giving you right now through the camera is exactly what I didn't even say anything. I was just like, wow, you should probably never email me again. Right? So for those of you, some of you said you wanted to be wholesalers. Okay, then be a good one. Be a good one, right? Don't BS your way through comps. Take your time, come up with the right number, be able to substantiate it with legitimacy, not what's the highest sold and that all of a sudden is the ARV. When it comes to the cost to sell, put in seller concessions. You will differentiate yourself to anybody else out there right now because nobody's doing it. No wholesaler's doing it. Cost of money, that's a tough one because everybody kind of borrows money from different places. But as a rule of thumb, if I said 2 and 12, does that make sense to everybody? If it doesn't, say it and I'll explain it.
Yeah, explain. 2 and 12.
2 and 12 means it's going to cost you 2% up front. So if you borrow 300,000, it's going to cost you $6,000. And then 12% is the annualized interest rate. So take 12% of 300,000, divide it by 12, and that's your monthly payment. So for example, let's just do some quick math. 300,000 times 0.12 is 36,000 divided by 12. It's 3,000 a month. Shame on me. I should probably have been able to do that math. So if that hard money lender wants you to have 10 months in reserves, that's 3,000 times 10 is 30,000. And then he was like, oh, but don't worry, I roll in the 2 points up front on the backside of the loan. I'm like, okay, right? So I'm like, all right, but so someone's got to have like 100K to borrow your money. Yeah, something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's what first time flippers have. Like, no, they don't, right? So you got to go find somebody that's more user friendly kind of thing, right? And so here's the thing, my friends. Some of you are experienced, some of you are new, some of you are getting started. Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you is we all start somewhere. Okay. We all start somewhere. Um, the biggest thing is there's such a thing called analysis paralysis. Everybody's heard of it, right? Where you over analyze and then you just never pull the trigger. That's not good. Okay. And then there's a point of you take calculated risks and you think you're going to go into a good deal and you make an educated decision and you hope it works out. I'm going to tell you right now, not everything works out. Not everything works out. Okay. I've lost money in real estate. And it just happens, man. It just happens. Sometimes you flip something and it doesn't sell. And then you got to turn it into a rental. And you're like, oh God, I never wanted it as a rental. And then you got to think about how you get cash out. Do you refi? Do you do this? Do you do this? Okay. The reason I tell you that is there's never this perfect thing. Okay. So as you guys go on your journey, all I'm going to tell you is be cautious of people that want to tell you you can be a millionaire on Monday. Okay. I used to speak for those yo-yos. And people would pay 25K, 40K, or 60K, and then they would show up, and then I would show up. And it was like, oh shit, this is who we get. Yep, this is who you get, right? This is who you get for 3 days. And I would always tell them, like, I don't know what the sales guy told you, but don't believe a thing he told you. I'm sorry. I'm not charging anything. I'm just here to teach you for 3 days. Just listen for 3 days. If you don't like what I'm going to teach you, go ask for a refund. They'll be more than happy to talk you out of it. But just give me 3 days to educate you guys, right? And I would tell people all the time, man, the way you test someone when you're meeting people, ask them if they've ever lost money. Everybody wants to tell you how they made 100K on a flip. Yeah, it happens. Not that often, but it happens. Okay. What's the average flipper's profit? Somewhere between 20 and 40K a deal. Okay. But when you ask someone, have you lost money in real estate investing? If they have the vulnerability to tell you yes and then say, do you mind sharing that story? My friends, that's where you learn the most. That's where you learn the most. Okay, is you learn from other people's mistakes. And where I'm going with that is real estate is beautiful, right? And you know, I mean, it can do whatever it want you to do, right? It's a thing. But right now it's tough. It's tough because it's hard to find the right deal. Right? I've got about every wholesaler in Denver sending me stupid deals. Most of them I just delete. If something remotely looks like I can put a deal together, I take the time just to go look, sometimes negotiate, sometimes offer less than what they got it for. I ask them, do you have wiggle room? I'm not going to buy a bad deal because we're looking for deals. Okay. We're actively looking for deals. Right. And so that's where you got to have the discipline is you're not missing out anything by buying a bad deal. Also, the reason I like flipping is because, well, is usually 30 days from now, I can somewhat have a meter on the market of where my price is going to be, right? So if I list this house at 490, am I fairly confident it's going to be around 490? Probably, unless we go to war. Then it doesn't make a difference, right? If interest rates drop, all of a sudden I'm getting 580 for that house, right? If it drops to 3%, I don't really know, but I feel pretty good about 490. Okay. So a lot of it is just apply common sense. Okay. Apply common sense. But for those of you, you know, that want to wholesale and stuff like that, please just don't be like those other yo-yos, right? And you'll take all these courses and they'll be like, whatever, it's on them to do due diligence. No, man. Just be a legit wholesaler and you'll understand how big your business will be because you're actually running numbers correctly and you're putting good deals out there. So the question, what always happens is now you're competing against other wholesalers that don't run the numbers the same way, so always willing to pay more. You guys, I lose every single day by 30, 40, 50 grand on deals. I lose every single day. Every day. It's just it is what it is. It's a numbers game, right? So just be disciplined. Now, what am I doing Thursday that Debbie's going to invite you to? And hopefully, Debbie, you captured their emails. Is Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do a 90-minute Zoom that's much more structured than today. It actually has a slide deck. And I have a program, a system that I call Flip to Cash Flow. And what flip to cash flow teaches people is it teaches you how to fix and flip in your local area. The key word is in your local area, and I have a million reasons why it needs to be in your local area, at least to start. Take a percentage of that profit and then leverage it with some sort of investment loan, whether it's a DSCR, hard money, asset-based loan, and buy a turnkey asset that might not be in your local market. And there's a reason and a system behind the work, the reason I teach you this. So I'd invite you to the webinar. You'll learn a lot in 90 minutes. Like I said, it's much more structured than what I was doing today. But what I want it to do for you is to just plant that there is a way, there's a systematic way to do this. And I don't care if in 2025 you do one flip and buy one rental. Cool. Then 2026 do two. 2027 do three. 2028 do four, right? The power pounding will get you to where you want to go, right? So and why am I an advocate for flipping in your local market? Is it's a good way to get lump sum cash. And you need lump sum cash to play the cash flow game. It's very difficult to play the cash flow game if you don't have lump sum cash, right? So, and on your destined deal, right? Leverage is good as long as you're running your numbers correctly, right? To go back to you full circle. Leverage is good. I'd love for you to come Thursday because maybe your 50K, 70K that you have now, 100K is better used to flip in XYZ city, build it, and then take that percentage of that profit and do what you're thinking about doing. So I'd love for you to at least come Thursday and listen. But at this point, I've held you for 90 minutes. Are there any immediate questions I can answer knowing that we got to hang up? So
Before anyone opens, I did drop the link for Thursday in the chat. So the link to register for Thursday is there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully, did you guys did it make sense on my key points?
Yes.
I hope it did. And if you're new, I get it. It was overwhelming, right? It was
Very valuable information.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. You're welcome. I enjoy teaching. Hopefully you can tell I do this, right? Like I actually do this for a living. You know, kind of thing. If you come across a good deal in Denver, let me know. Shit. If it's good, we'll buy it. We'll buy it tomorrow. So
Okay. What other areas are you looking for, like other states or?
right now, I have two focuses right now. So my main focus right now is Denver for fix and flips, and then I'm doing a bunch of transitional housing at St. Paul, Minnesota. One of my best friends lives out there. We have a very large multifamily that we've got approved for 4 p.m. Venera. We got approved for sober living, but we're actually partnering with a nonprofit for a different type of transitional housing. So it's so St. Paul it's a market I've invested in before, but it will come back on our radar once we get this multifamily working the way we want it within these programs that we're partnering with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. So none of the markets like Florida, Dallas, or Arizona?
Dallas, I've never done a deal. I did do a bunch of deals in Texarkana on the Texas side, but no, I'm not doing Dallas. Florida, I've done also. Let me tell you something real quick here. I'm going to show you guys something, and I know I promised I'd hang up, but you got to see this because this needs to be a red flag for anybody. I had somebody I'm coaching. She's an agent, and these guys were trying to wholesale her a deal in I'm going to share my screen. They were trying to wholesale her a deal in Port Charlotte. Okay. Now, they were trying to sell her a deal and they told her, oh, this is such a smoking hot deal. You could sell the house for $400,000. My friends, what does all the red mean?
Oh, wow.
What is the
What
rent?
about
It's for sale.
what's on the market?
It's for sale.
Everything that is for sale in Port Charlotte, Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The flood of properties, right?
I see a lot of 150 and 160 too. I don't see anything that's looks like 400.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's frozen.
I think we lost him. Yeah.
Al, are you frozen, buddy?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
David.
that's what I see. All those houses for sale and
Yeah.
all these over here on the right in the 150s, 160s.
Yeah.
There is a couple that you can see in the
Mm-hmm.
2s and 3s, but I don't see anything at 4. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I do have your emails from when you registered for the meeting, so I will send out oh my gosh, I was just gonna say, Tiana, you look so different now than when you first signed on. Um, anyhow, so I will send out the or I will have Al send out that sheet. He just texted me that he lost his internet. So
Yeah.
one of us will send that sheet out to you, but
Okay.
if you can register for Thursday night's meeting, I dropped that in the chat, or
Okay.
Thursday afternoon rather,
Mm-hmm.
4 p.m. Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna kind of go over his program, and he does have a coaching uh, cohort that is getting ready to start, I think next week. So if any of you guys are interested in working with him, Al is one of the best investors who's willing to share all of his
Yeah.
knowledge and experience that I just really have enjoyed working with. So,
Yeah. Okay.
all right, you
Yeah.
guys have a great night. Thanks for hanging
Thank
out with
you.
us.